feel good. Feel back to normal. So, I mean, I'm ready this week.
The Abyss is over. Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name's Dan Barreiro, joined as always by Justin Gaard and Lori Fisher.
We're in the
Are you as excited as
Is that
everybody
purple?
else?
It is purple.
Okay.
I don't know how it comes off on TV, but it is purple.
It is? It seems
Once
a
again,
little bit.
I'm still not allowed to wear purple. That came
That's
down
lavender.
from Lori
That's
Fisher.
true.
I'm
You can
not
wear
allowed to wear
purple,
purple. I
not
can't
lavender.
participate in Purple Friday or Lavender Friday.
Football season's upon us. The
Yes.
pro football season is upon us. Are you ready for it, Lori?
Yes, and Vikings are going to be in this lineup every week. So
As they should
Well,
Buckle
until
up.
they fall to 0-6.
Yeah.
What
Well,
would be
we'll
the line where we just stop talking about them?
Well,
Well, 0-6, the coach is getting fired.
That's true.
Well, we'll talk predictions
Yeah.
later. Vikings wide receiver, we just heard from Justin Jefferson. He's excited to start the season. Game 1 this Sunday against the Bengals in Cincinnati on Fox 9. Coach Mike Zimmer said earlier this week that there were a lot of unknowns for Week 1 with many veterans not playing in the preseason. Dan?
Well, I think, Zim has kind of done the gallows humor thing, but he's doing it in a way that makes me think that whether he's right or not, he suspects a big recovery. And I think if there's going to be a big recovery, I've thought about this a lot, because this is an important deal to preview here. People look to us
they do.
for guidance on, well, how's this season going to go?
I can tell you're taking this seriously.
I'm pretty convinced that this offense, despite what Jefferson is thinking and hoping, can't get much better than it already is, which I would call a fringe top 10 offense, which is what we were. Yardage-wise, we were better than that, but scoring, we really weren't. I don't think Cousins can play any better than he did. He might play worse. Dalvin Cook's great. I don't think he can get any better. Same with the receivers. So to me, this is all about whether, not that this can become a good defense again, but whether it can become a great defense. Because if there's any hope to really make a big push this year, to me, that's what has to happen. And we have to go from being a terrible defense to being not one of Zimmer's good ones, but one of Zimmer's best. That's the only way this works. And I think Zim believes, or has convinced himself, with the injuries, the people healthy, and the additions they've made, he can pull that off. But I say he's got to be right, or we're talking about no playoffs.
Yeah, the room for growth from a year ago is all on defense. I think you're right. They're probably about their ceiling offensively, and that's
unless we get another quarterback, and we ain't going to get one.
By the way, Irv Smith isn't going to be a part of that now. There's still question marks about the third wide receiver. Like, there's still some questions about it, but if Dalvin Cook isn't healthy, then all bets are off, right? We've kind of seen that. So the room for growth is going to be defensively, but that's where a lot of the question marks are too. I know that some people have ranked this defense potentially as the best defense in the National Football League. To me, that feels a little bit like reading 2017 when you talk about guys that were really good in 2017 that are still here, like Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, some others, Daniil Hunter among that group. I think they are going to be improved, but I still go back to, and Zimmer said this too, if the wrong guys get hurt, we're in trouble. And whether that's secondary, whether that's linebacker, maybe not so much on the defensive lines. I think they have some depth, and I like Andre Patterson, the guy who's coaching them. That's what worries me is on paper, it does look like this defense is going to be better, but it's also a very thin piece of paper, and we still have a lot of questions about it.
It'll be better, but I think it's got to be much better and got to be great. And to your point, that's Zimmer's way, basically, of saying how much he resents Kirk Cousins' contract. It really is. I mean, because part of the reason they don't have the depth is that. Some of it's decision-making, but some of it is they just don't have the money to put themselves in a position to go get some of that depth. And, I think you raise a good point about some of the main guys. How many of them are past their peak? Harrison Smith?
Probably quite a few.
Barr is. I always thought he was a little overrated anyway, and he may not even start for the opener.
Hunter's coming off of an injury, but they think he's good. Kendrick's coming off of an injury. They think he's good. By the way, it's not just Cousins' contract that's put him in a bad spot. The cornerback situation. We don't know about the corners, right? We think Patrick Peterson's going to be okay. We think Breeland's going to be okay. But part of the reason why they're in this predicament is they've used 3 first-round draft picks on corners, and none of them worked out.
And we've got our first-round draft choice this year, the highest one, he's not ready yet because he's injured. There's nobody from this draft right now that you go, wow.
Right.
They're going to help us from the beginning. That's not helpful to Rick Spielman's job security.
Dan, predictions for the season out of 17 games. Go.
I'll let you start.
I think 10-7.
10-7?
I think they'll get to 10. At least.
Dan?
I feel good about them.
I've got 9 and 8.
9 and 8,
but if it's going to be 10 and 7 or better, it better be defense because you know your guy, your QB is not going to be any better than he was last year.
Probably
not.
I'm
going to keep this piece of paper and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Write it down, yeah.
I did. Gopher football. They're getting ready to play Miami on Saturday after losing to Ohio State last week. Coach P.J. Fleck said on the P.J. Fleck show that the team is resilient. They'll put the oar back in the water, and the measuring stick is that they need to be better than last week, Justin.
Defensively, again, that's the theme. I think that's the theme for both football clubs because I think the offense is going to be what the offense is going to be. We talked about Mo Ibrahim last week. We didn't know at that point that he was going to be out for the season, but we had a pretty good indication that he was going to be. They can get around that a little bit, not saying that's a big loss. It's not a big loss because it is. It's massive. He might be the best running back in the Big Ten. But offensively, I think that's where their experience is. That's where they have guys that have played. That's where their depth is. I think they're going to be able to get around that. Defensively, Ohio State completed 5 passes in the second half last week, something like that, and it went for over 250 yards. That was a problem a year ago. It continues to be a problem this year. So that's the group that needs to be resilient. That's the group that needs to grow. I think this offense is going to be what it's going to be, but if they're going to have a successful season, defense has to play much better.
Part of this is going to be figuring out also what they want to be offensively without the big injury.
Yep.
Because I know there's some people out there who believe, you know what, switch it on a dime. You got a quarterback who can do it. You got the receivers that we saw some promising things from, and Ottman Bell didn't even play last week. Let's pass the ball. I'm not sure I buy that this can be an Air Coryell, throw the ball 62 times a game kind of offense. I really don't. Now, you're around it more than me.
Well, even 2 years ago when they had NFL wide receivers, they went deep and they threw it, but it's still, PJ wants to run the ball. He wants to control the clock.
They took their, where they had opportunities to make big plays, they did it.
Yep.
But to me, they're still going to have to run a lot. And no one is as good as Ibrahim, obviously.
Right.
But to me, I don't think, and I don't love the quarterback enough to say just sling it 65 times. I don't even think he has the kind of mobility to do it. I'm not asking the Gopher defense to be great the way I'm asking the Vikings defense to be great, but it is obviously going to have to be a lot better, or we're going to sit here very disappointed once we get to Big Ten games. I mean, this is not a huge challenge this week.
Shouldn't be.
One would assume you're supposed to take. You got to take. If they lose to Miami, you shut her down.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
And I'm calling for PJ's head the next week.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can't lose to Miami.
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
I would agree with that.
But I mean, that's not likely. But what matters is once we get back into the Big Ten, and even I guess Colorado, but the Big Ten games for sure, you're going to have to at least, as you say, as we've really talked about for weeks, minimize the big play deal and have at least a service. Make the other team drive 15 plays to get their touchdown.
Enough said. According to Bloomberg Businessweek, Mark Lori has a plan to build a $400 billion metropolis. He calls the city of Tolosa, right?
Tolosa? Yes, very well pronounced. Tolosa.
It's a Greek word of like the highest calling or the
highest purpose.
Highest purpose.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Lori, we know, is the new co-owner of the Lynx and Wolves. We're not sure where it would be located, how exactly it would be funded, but as we know, Lori is worth billions of dollars. Dan, I am sure you have some great insight on this.
Well, I haven't done a deep dive, although there is a website already set up. And it goes on, it's called cityoftolosa.com. Graphics, photos.
It looks majestic. It's breathtaking.
The objectives, how this is basically going to be Shangri-La is what it's going to be on a number of different fronts. And it probably, now we know where all those people, Wolves fans, worried about where the new owners might move the club once they have control of it. Clearly, they got plenty of time to move it to Tolosa, to be, as you mentioned on the radio, to the Tolosa Timberwolves.
Rolls off the tongue.
Even though the city itself, they need $500 billion.
Yes. Lori shortchanged him. I thought I read $500 billion.
I think it's $500 billion.
The initial investment's only $40 billion.
Does this bother you at all?
For 50,000.
The cities that were named that they're kind of designing.
Did I say $40 billion? I meant
you said $400 billion.
Yeah,
it's $500 billion.
Okay,
There's an extra $100 billion that they've got to find for it to reach its full potential. I mean, you can still build a nice city for $400 billion, but if you really want to do it right, you need that extra $100 billion.
A lot of people, I'm not the first to say it, have wondered whether. I mean, this sounds daunting. To build from scratch in the desert, a $500 billion city where everybody gets along, everybody has a good shot at real estate, everything's green, everybody's riding bicycles or
very
scooters.
Few cars.
Very few cars, and everybody's eating right, the whole bit. Is that That's a daunting challenge. But is it as daunting as making the Timberwolves a playoff team? I'm not sure. It's close.
I think
a push.
That's why we're hearing about this now. He bought the team, looked into it a little bit further, had the team all down there, I think, in Miami with A-Rod, came up here, he's met with the staff, and he said, I need a different legacy. It's not going to be an NBA champion. We got to move forward with the city. This is going to be easier.
Distraction building this town?
But that's why you have A-Rod. A-Rod's going to handle the sports. Lori's going to handle Tolosa.
Okay.
I can't wait to visit there. I can't wait to do a show there.
Tokyo, New York, and Stockholm are the cities they're modeling it after. What about us?
Minneapolis?
What about the Twin Cities? Why aren't we? That would bother me.
He actually made it out of the towers. But when everybody ran away, he ran back in. And he helped some people. And so he was the one for somebody, you know.
Welcome back to Enough Said. That's Coon Rapids High School Principal John Pena. He lost his Uncle Joe, who was a building manager at the World Trade Centers. Can you believe it will be 20 years tomorrow since September 11th, 2001. Nearly 3,000 people died due to the terror attacks. It is definitely safe to say that it is one of those moments in our lives that we will always remember where we were when we found out. I know that my now husband called me and said, turn on the TV, and moments later, my executive producer said, get to Channel 9 right now.
Yep.
Guys, Dan, you want to start?
Well, I was at home, I think. In fact, we were about to sell a condo and moving, and we had we're watching the Today Show. I think that's where we watched it, where a lot of people did. And, you know, there have been a million retrospectives that have cropped up, some of them very good. And watching one of them last night, what occurred to me immediately was the further you get from it, at least for me, the more unreal it seems again.
Right.
When it's upon you, you are jolted in a different way because you're looking at this stuff in real time over and over and over again. And so as shocking as it is, it starts sinking in. You get 20 years from it and you go, did that really happen?
Right.
You know, in a weird sort of way, the longer you get from it, I think the harder it is to believe that sort of tragedy could have existed. And I like what Lori opened with there, because for me, what I've tried to do more of this time, like a lot of people, is look for the moments of humanity that we saw repeated over and over again at a time like that, including Brian Clark, who was one of the guys who survived. He was on the 84th floor of the South Tower. We've had him on the radio. He ends up on his way down running into a man on the 81st floor. They help each other get out, and they end up being bonded by this tragedy and have become lifelong friends. They've been at each other's at family weddings, etc. We have a million of those examples of people who, whether they thought they were ready for it or not, had showed that humanity, and that's what I try to hold on to at a time like this, because the tragedy speaks for itself.
I remember the moment. Obviously, you remember the day. Remember, this is before social media too.
That's right.
Like now, you'd find about it on Twitter. You'd get an alert on your phone. People had to call each other to say, "Turn on the TV and let's see what actually is going on." And then you just watch TV the rest of the day, right? I was a freshman in college.
Your mouth just hanging open.
And we've joked, I've been to 5 colleges. I don't remember any of my professors except one. Charles Chapin, history professor, walked into the lecture hall and said the United States has been attacked. We're going through the lecture for 5 minutes, and then everybody get home, find out what you need to find out. And being on a college campus, you know, you're kind of all by yourself. You're kind of all alone.
30.
And you're just trying to figure out exactly what is going on. But I remember the humanity in the aftermath. You know, President Bush, on the rubble. President Bush throwing out the first pitch, being in a stadium for the first time after the games were canceled. And I was thinking about that today. I mean, literally crying when you hear the USA chant, because that was kind of how we all felt. It was a very united time in the aftermath of that. So that's what I remember.
One of the most heartbreaking things for me, and it's been repeated a lot this week, is, if you recall, all the ambulances that had shown up, hundreds of ambulances, basically saying, we're here to help.
Right.
And they all
to
have to go back to where they came from because there's nothing to do. The number of people, one of whom we had on the air, who lived in Manhattan and said, look, what can we do? Well, we'll at least donate blood. Goes down to the place where that's done, and they say eventually,
We don't need it.
We don't need it,
right.
Because unfortunately, almost everybody who was there perished. It was awful then. It's awful.
There are a lot of
now.
memorials and events planned for here in Minnesota, and of course across the country, and especially in New York. Next up, President Biden announced new COVID-19 vaccine and testing requirements for as many as 100 million Americans. This is part of his action plan to try to contain COVID and its variants. Companies with 100 or more employees will have to be required to they will have to be vaccinated or be tested weekly. And as I said it before, we say it every week, the heat is on to get vaccinated, even more so now, Dan.
Well, hold on to your hats, because a form of civil war has broken out, at least verbally speaking, right? Because we've got a lot of Republican governors saying we're going to challenge it, we're going to resist it. Not surprising, there's going to be all kinds of court battles on this thing. I was struck by something that Chris Wallace said on Fox 9 this morning, the bit that he does with the morning news anchors. And he said, you know, we're having, speaking of the 9/11 tragedy and the anniversary, we're having a 9/11 in a sense every other day.
Right.
We're losing 1,500 people right now a day again. And the point he was trying to make is we don't look at it the same way, but in fact that's the level of tragedy, and I think that's, quite frankly, whether it passes legal muster or not, is what is moving the government and Biden to take a step that he vowed not that long ago he wasn't going to take. His press secretary said, we're not going there. That's not our place. This is a public health emergency, and that might be, in the past, the courts have been pretty favorable in allowing executives to go farther than I am always comfortable with, because this seems like it's a righteous cause, but what if the next one you don't think is quite as righteous?
Right.
But the bottom line is, when you're losing those kinds of numbers, and by the way, it's still largely with unvaccinated individuals who are losing their lives, the government has an obligation, I think, to say, what can we do to give ourselves the best chance to finish this thing?
30 seconds, Justin.
Well, especially as we try to continue to open things up.
Yes.
You know, we've had full college stadiums. We're going to have full NFL stadiums. Everybody's going back to school now, and we know that by definition, a lot of those kids can't get vaccinated. So I'm fine with this. And really, with the stadiums, it's either you're going to be vaccinated for COVID or you're not bringing COVID in, because that's part of the deal, too, is that the companies, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to do like the NFL does, right, where it's basically you're going to have to get tested because we don't want to bring the virus into the workplace.
Enough said.
I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, the difference is businesses deciding to do it is very different than the government decreeing that you do it. I got one, you know, people want to say it's not ever, it's about, let's don't make this political.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it about as political as I can.
Okay.
The direct line between, basically since 7/1/21, COVID deaths per 100,000 residents in counties with 90 to 100% Trump voters is 8 times higher than those counties in which there was 0 to 10% who voted for Trump.
He got the vaccine, by the way.
And he did. That's the irony of this whole thing. But you can pretend that it's not directly related to this, but that's about as good an evidence as we have that there is a direct line. We got to stop apologizing for it and pretending that's not the case. That's a lot of why we're in the position we are in today.
Enough said. Real quick, well, I don't know how you're going to do this real quick, but I just want your quick thoughts on it. The ballot measure on the future policing in Minneapolis is just a mess. A judge ruled Tuesday the language was vague, so the city council changed it, but now there's another challenge to update it again. The proposal for voters is how the city should transform public safety, but will they even understand the question? There is an emergency hearing, a judge hearing on Monday morning, Dan.
What's your question again, Lori?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I've read all of it, and I'm utterly confused.
I know.
I think both sides are being shifty. I think both sides are being shady on it. I don't know who's right or who's wrong in this thing, but I do know, I agree with whoever's saying, can we at least try to understand what we're voting for and make sure that whatever the messages are getting out so that people can actually know what they're voting for. That seems to make sense.
The judges included are saying, well, we can't follow this. So, you know, we've had over a year to actually formulate a plan.
And I get the urgency.
That's the problem here. It's so open-ended that it's so vague in that regard. If you had a concrete plan that was coherent and you put together, then maybe there is something to vote on here. But this is so wide open, and in effect, I think to a certain extent, there is a desire to mislead because there is a hope to basically blow up the entire system. And guess what? If it's a system in which there's no cops, the people who allegedly are being protected are actually hurt the worst by exactly that approach. And we hear that via emails on our radio show every day from people living and working in these communities and saying, we want better cops, but we don't want to go scorched earth and not have cops because we're ending up with more problems in some ways than we had even before.
Well, and I'd say we understand the urgency. Part of the reason, like you say, they've had a year to try to figure this out, and people are saying, what are we waiting for? The longer we delay, the more of a problem it's going to be. I completely get the urgency.
I do.
I completely get the fact that this does seem to be something that continues to get kicked down the line. I get that frustration, but I still think there's got to be some kind of clarity.
Welcome back. It's lightning round time. First up, more people are announcing that they are going to run for governor. Former Republican Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka jumped into the race, as well as several other Republicans. We're still waiting to hear if Governor Walz is going to run again. Now, remember, it's not this fall. It's fall of 22, Dan.
Oh, man, that's true. It's a long. Well, the campaign.
I was really hoping it was in November.
Yeah, it'd be less exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
I expect Walz will run again.
Me too.
Don't you?
Me too.
I
kind of hinted at it a while ago.
I'm not convinced. I know we've had Republican governors. I think the ship has sailed on, though. I'm not sure this state's ever going to have another Republican governor. Now, I know outstate things are changing and former Democrats are turning a little redder in some communities. But I think as that's happening, it's getting bluer here. So is there vulnerability? Yeah, maybe on some stuff. But I don't know if the Republicans if they've identified yet the candidate who has, they think, the best chance to get it done.
Justin, this one goes to you. Minnesota's own gold medalist, Gable Steveson, is signing his name, image, likeness with the WWE. He is a big-time wrestler. He is going to return to the U, though, to defend his NCAA title.
Well, and that's a sign of the times, 2021, that he can sign with the WWE, make millions of dollars, I assume.
Publicly.
Yes.
Not like surreptitiously.
Exactly.
Some secret deal for later.
And because WWE is professional wrestling, it's entertainment, technically, so he can make millions, which I assume, come back, wrestle for the U. This is a win-win for everybody. He gets paid, the university gets to keep their guy, fans get to watch him here, WWE's happy. This is great.
Where are the wrestling purists, though? Why don't we have like a real wrestling professional league that he can participate in?
Next up.
Does that exist?
I don't think it does. I think it's the Olympics, quite frankly.
I guess that's probably the closest.
That's about it where he won the gold.
The Wild debut, the team's new Winter Classic jersey. They're going to be wearing these on New Year's Day outside at Target Field when they host the St. Louis Blues. What do we think? I think they're pretty cool.
I don't like them.
I love them.
You don't?
I don't like them.
I love them. What's your grief?
They're too busy. There's too much stuff going on.
Too busy.
Less is more.
It's old school.
They didn't even spell out Minneapolis.
We got the we got the star on the top of the chest.
Too many lines.
We got different colors. Too many lines.
That's what they did back in the day.
It's just
it's an homage.
They should have just done a North Stars jersey because then all the North Stars.
Okay, here we go.
As a guy who loves history, I can't believe how many times you turn your back.
Where's the history there?
That was one of the jerseys they used in like 1910.
I like it.
We're
Okay.
happy for
a new study.
You guys like every New Jersey.
That's not true.
Never been a New Jersey.
You
guys
hate.
Don't like.
You hate every new one.
You just like newness.
Justin,
Change
we
it
can
up.
go get our.
Okay.
You can't get tickets yet, but we can go get our jerseys.
Oh, good.
Okay.
A new study shows
That's what they're counting on.
women
It's all
are
about
more
the money.
Women are more likely to be in charge of the remote control. And I was wondering, in your households, it's definitely my kids, not me.
Did they
what
do a
about you
study
guys?
on this?
They did, and I don't understand why.
How scientific was it?
Well, I was going to say, and there's
Don't
no
have those
reason for it.
details.
It's obvious. Yeah, it's obvious. I have no control over the remote control at my house.
I think
Dan?
it's the kid. Yeah, I think it's the kid, or in my case, for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, we've lost all control. And
Yeah.
finally, I wanted to end on this video. It is just so cute. An Oakland A's fan caught a foul ball with his fanny pack.
Oh, come on.
Yes, and fanny packs are back, and you can wear
They
them
are
so
back.
many ways.
Yep.
Round your waist,
They look
crossover
uncomfortable.
bag.
They look
Would you-
cumbersome.
my question though is, would you guys wear one? I
No.
do.
Didn't
I wouldn't
Fox
wear
9
one.
have one at the fair a couple
We
years
did.
ago?
I did wear that one.
I wore that one. It was
The
a
Fox
sharp
9 fanny
look.
pack.
It was a very handsome fanny
I used to
pack.
take it on
Yeah.
my walks sometimes.
But if you don't want to put it around your waist, you can always put it across your chest.
They're very
so
versatile.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah, they're very versatile. So
Enough
that guy
said,
whiffed
fanny
on the
pack.
catch, and it
was
fell.
that staged?
Well, because I say he made the catch with the fanny pack. No,
Yeah.
he didn't.
No, he really didn't.
He dropped it,
Yeah.
and the fanny pack luckily was there to save him. That's how I view that, but I'm negative.
You are negative.
I'm
and
negative.
You learned that from me.
Enough
I'll
said,
be blamed
Emmy.
for it.
Emmy nominated. Enough said. That's all I'm
Seriously?
gonna say.
Emmy nominated
Emmy
again?
nominated.
I had no idea.
You know what? I think that's 3 years in a row.
That's good. Well,
maybe this is the year.
Are we ever going to win it?
Probably not.
Yes, this is our year.
This is it. Trust me, we'll talk about it if we win.